And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the pregame report. I'm Ian Nickel, and we have a lot to talk about today. Alex Dusky is with me. Parker Terrell is with me as well. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Excited. Last show of the year, last game of the year.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a good one.
I'm excited to have been on the show all year, and I'm just excited to finish out the season, hopefully strong.
Yeah, and we were expected to come in here. Our call time was supposed to be 4 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
For that 6 o'clock kick.
The 6 o'clock kick on ESPNU, and like 24 hours before this, it was like, surprise, we're moving you to 2:30.
Well, it's a shock that this game is being played. Baylor had that scare on Thursday with having to shut down their facilities. I was kind of surprised, especially since, we had talked earlier this week that this game really has no meaning. There's no way that we can get into the championship. Neither can Baylor. So I was surprised that we're playing it. But, one more game for the Cowboys.
Again, I agree with you, Alex. I don't know why this game is being played, especially considering that the OU West Virginia game got canceled, as did the Texas and Kansas game. I was thinking that the Big 12 wanted to finish out their season and be able to claim that they played every single game that was on the schedule, we're the only conference that could have said that.
Right.
And even then, only canceling 2 of the scheduled 45, so 43 out of 45, not a bad ratio in a COVID year like today. So we're the only game on the slate. Hopefully, again, we have a good showing in Waco.
Right.
In a place we've never won, McLean Stadium. So.
Yeah, that's hopefully we can get that done. We had a stat earlier. We were talking off air. Gundy is 2-6.
Yeah, 2-6 in the last 8 years. Of course, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Right, we got the TCU game to recap.
Talking about the TCU game, OSU fell to the Horned Frogs 29-22 last week in Fort Worth, in what was a pretty dominant performance, I would say, in the first half. I wouldn't say dominant, but we were up 16-0. Should have been 16-0 going into halftime. We let TCU get that late touchdown with about 30 seconds left right before halftime to make it 16-7. And from there, TCU just dominated us in the second half, outscoring us 22-6. So
this week with media availabilities, Gundy and a couple of the players just said that it was a weird game because they had it. They did. The Cowboys had the game, like you said, in the first half. And Brock Martin said, we forced 5 fumbles and still lost. Like, that's just unheard of, but that's unfortunately life sometimes. But, you brought up that big play, and I think that's something that the defense just can't afford to do. And we weren't letting those big plays go earlier in the season. And I think that's something that hopefully today the Cowboys can go back and redeem themselves. Jim Knowles said we're not playing to the capacity that we were playing at the start of the season. And so that's what I'm hoping today. The Cowboys can go back, play a strong, clean defensive game, and, win today against the Bears.
To go off that point, I do agree with Jim Knowles that the defense isn't playing as well as it has been. But when you first force 5 turnovers, I'm never going to blame the defense.
Right.
And that's something that Mike Gundy did in his press conferences all throughout the week, was really throw the defense under the bus a bit. And I just totally disagree with that move. I think that, when you have a guy like Amen Agbanbamiga,
he set a new school record with the game last week with 3 forced fumbles in one game.
Again, winning Big 12 Player of the Week in a losing effort, something that hasn't been done, I believe, all year in the NFL or in the Big 12. So good for him, and good for the defense for forcing those turnovers, as we see one of those clips right here. One of those strip
Here's
sacks.
the strip sack, yeah.
And Mike Gundy did say something that I did agree with, in that it's so hard to perform that act of stripping the ball away when the offense knows that's what you're trying to do, and yet it still kept happening, and yet our offense still kept getting 3 and outs.
And it is kind of hypocritical. I just want to bring this up, and then I'll let you speak, Ian. Gundy was saying how defense and special teams have been winning the games for the season, so it's kind of weird for him to not give the credit to the defense after the TCU game.
I agree.
Well, I don't want to necessarily blame the defense. I feel like the defense was out there for so long. I mean, they were...
That's the other thing, is they never got a break.
The only person blaming the defense is Mike Gundy.
Right.
Absolutely. And a lot of that does go on the offense when you look at the total yards, 501 from TCU to OSU's 418, and then TCU had 21 first downs, while Oklahoma State had 16. In the Big 12, you're supposed to have a dominant offense, and that's what Oklahoma State is used to. That air raid, high-octane offense style of the ball.
And here are a couple of those offensive clips from that game.
Yeah, we saw Desmond Jackson with the big first down run in that first clip. He played fine, 118
118
yards and a
yards.
touchdown. Especially again for a third string guy coming in relief duty for not only LD Brown but also Chuba Hubbard.
But
who
like
is
you
out
said
today. Chuba Hubbard is
Right.
not going to be playing. Neither is Tylan Wallace. Mike Gundy announced before the game on the pregame show that Chuba Hubbard is done for the season and he's going to pursue the NFL.
But like you were
So-
saying, Ian, is we're used to that air raid game, and I just don't think the Cowboys have done that this season.
No. And I think that has to do with the quarterback. I think that he's more of a dual threat guy, a guy that we haven't had in a while. And, to put him into an offense and to put him in situations where you're asking him to throw the ball a lot, similar to Mason Rudolph, even similar to Taylor Cornelius, I don't think that fits his skill set, and I don't think that the offense has put him in good enough situations. That being said, I'm not the biggest proponent of Spencer Sanders. I think that there were some throws that he missed in that game against TCU. You saw it right there. Jelani Woods overthrowing a 6'7" player, the tallest player on the team at the time, or tallest player on the field at the time. There's no excuses for that. He had another interception against TCU last week, and it's just tough all around that game.
Ian,
It
what are
is
your
tough
thoughts
because
on?
you said Mike Gundy said that we had the game in the bag and then we lost it. All those turnovers. Just think about one thing. What if we hadn't got those turnovers? What the score would have been?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Spencer, looking forward next season? And then, we have Dylan Stoner in the receiver position. Tylan Wallace will most likely not be here next season. Obviously, he'll be pursuing bigger things with the NFL. What do you think moving forward with the Cowboy offense we'll see?
Well, you know what's interesting? When we talk about OSU quarterbacks, we go back to Brandon Weeden, Clint Chelf, Mason Rudolph, Taylor Cornelius. They're all big, pocket passer guys. And Mike Gundy has never had to deal with a mobile quarterback before. So I don't think he knows how to use him in some aspects. He's trying to make him do a lot of throws that he doesn't need to when Spencer's really good on the ground.
Right,
And he
and
might
there's
be able to use him there.
The clips that you just saw were of Spencer running the ball, which was pretty good. What do you think we'll see from the receiver position? Do you think Dylan Stoner had a pretty good season last year, and we just haven't seen much from him this season? Obviously, Tylen's done really well. Do you think he'll be able to fill that position, or do you think we'll see more underclassmen come in and step up?
Well, the thing is, Dylan Stoner last year, when Tylen was out for most of October, November, December, he knew he was going to be the number one guy, and he was expected to
And there's this
fulfill that
catch from
role.
him against TCU game.
Yes, I think he could still do that. Now that he, has had a couple of games to be that number one receiver, he could definitely step up there. I'd also like to see Jelani Woods step up.
Right.
Again, his 6'7".
Had a great run in that
Yeah.
game. I don't know if we have that highlight, but took a guy's ankles right there on the outside. I don't know why we don't use him more. I guess obviously we were trying to get him a touchdown there at the end,
Right.
With the overthrow, but no, I just think that today I just hope that our offense is not one-dimensional. I hope that it can be balanced. That's something that was a hallmark of past Oklahoma State teams, Gundy teams, was the balance. Yes, it was an air raid system, but we were able to run the ball. We were able to throw the ball to all of our different receivers, and we talked about it all year ad nauseum. These guys that were supposed to step up all year just really haven't. Tay Anderson or Tay Martin, D. Anderson. So hopefully we can see some ingenuity today and some life against a stout Baylor defense.
Yeah, this Baylor defense, or this Baylor team comes in at 2-6, had a pretty decent showing in the first half at least against Oklahoma. They ended up losing that game 27-14. But if you look back at their schedule, they have a couple of losses that
Pretty close
could have
games,
been
right?
wins. Yeah.
I think we're going to unpack more about that Baylor game. But first, we're going to switch over to Adam Engel from Wyoming with Who Has the Edge on Special Teams. Adam?
What is up, everyone? Happy game day here in Wyoming. Thank you so much, Parker, Ian, and Alex, once again. So today I'm here back on the Who Has the Edge beat, talking about special teams to start. So taking a look at Baylor, right? Their kicker, John Mayers, a redshirt sophomore, of course, not to be confused with the singer-songwriter John Mayer. But I said redshirt, I was wrong. He's a true sophomore and 2-year starter for this Baylor Bears program. However, unfortunately for him, he's coming off a rough game last week, to put it frankly, against OU in Norman, in which he missed two field goal attempts, but hey, he was successful on his 2 PATs. So that's the interesting thing with John Mayer. So this season, guys, he's a perfect 22 of 22 in the PAT department. However, he's 9 of 14 in the field goal range. So it will be interesting to see how many opportunities this guy gets to kick the football this afternoon. Of course, the OSU defense, though, is hoping to limit his production. Now, for the punters, OSU defense is not looking to limit the production. They're hoping to see a lot from their punter, Isaac Power. Now, out of high school, Isaac Power was one of the top punting prospects in the high school class of 2018 from Ponderosa High in the Denver metro area. Now, similar to Mayers, Power is also a 2-year starter, and it's really interesting considering, like, Baylor, their special teams kickers and punters, they have really solid experience considering their youth. So, you know, they've both played full seasons, even though they really are in their second season. Now, he's kicked the ball a lot, 44 punts in just 8 games. So switching over to OSU, you think Powers has punted a lot? Well, Tom Hutton. To start, Tom Hutton, he's been one of the most improved players this season for OSU. Now, he's seen a lot of punting opportunities. In fact, 54, which is 10 more than Powers punts. But the thing is, he's had a lot of that. He's had a lot of reps. But as most Aussie punters are, Hutton has been extremely accurate. In fact, 24 of his 54 punts have been down inside the 20. Now, over to the kicking situation for Oklahoma State. As of late, it's gotten really complicated. But guys, remember, to start the season, the OSU kicking department was in great hands. I mean, it was really clear cut. Alex Hale, a redshirt sophomore from Australia, was your guy. In fact, he was incredibly impressive. I mean, the guy only missed 1 field goal, and he was perfect, 10 of 10 on his PATs. Now, unfortunately for him, as we all know, in the warm-ups of Bedlam, the worst possible thing to happen to a kicker happened. He injured his kicking leg in warm-ups. So like I said, not just any injury, a kicking leg injury. So to put it into perspective, maybe to quarterback standards, that's like a quarterback hurting his throwing shoulder. Now, so with that being said, of course, after Hale goes down, you know, there's a lot of mystery, a lot of confusion around the OSU field goal place kicking competition. So enter Brady Pohl, a redshirt sophomore from Kansas City. He did kick 1 kick in garbage time in that Kansas win, but he stepped into the spotlight in Norman, and he was fantastic. He made both of his field goal attempts and knocked in his lone PAT attempt. Now, last week, down in Fort Worth against TCU, guys, things got really, really interesting. Ben Freehill, another redshirt freshman kicker, he made his PAT to start things off. Unfortunately, he missed his next extra point, and then at that point, Brady Pohl took over, but even for him, it was rough in relief. 1 for 3 from field goal range. So it will be really interesting to see who gets the place kicking start for the Pokes this afternoon. But guys, it's crazy. I think for the first time this season, me personally, I'm gonna have to give the edge special teams to Baylor, not OSU. I think Baylor, because of their consistency, they have the edge. But of course, all of that will be settled this afternoon in McLean Stadium in Waco. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Adam. You guys, as you guys heard, he gave the special teams edge to Baylor, and I think a lot of that goes with just John Mayers being a solid kicker, and then OSU having a lot of questions at the special teams position, with Alex Hale out, and now they're.
We left 7 points on the board last week against TCU, and we lost the game by 7. So I'm not saying that we could have won. I'm not saying that in overtime we could have done something, but those are those points that we left on the board, and that's the difference in the game. So I agree with Adam.
What Gundy did say, he was like, he did miss those, and those are things that you cannot miss in these types of games. Something that I don't think we mentioned yet, but in the post game interviews, both Gundy, Knowles, and Casey Dunn all said that this was an NFL type of game. Did you guys see that at all, or like what are your thoughts on that? They were saying how, you know, you have to win those one-on-one battles in the run game and the pass game.
I think maybe they said that because, this is going to be scheme versus scheme. Dave Aranda and the Baylor defense made OU's offense, which scored 41 against us, look pedestrian last week. So I do think that it's going to be a big-time coaching battle. Baylor, I would say Baylor is like a greater than the sum of their parts defense. They don't have a lot of guys that are just going to pop. They don't have a lot of guys that are going to play on Sundays, at least that we know of now. But just being able to scheme them up as Dave Aranda does is what makes them so good, especially on the defensive side. And they're coming off of a win against Kansas State. And then I don't believe in moral victories, but if you want to call that game against OU a moral victory, I think that you could easily call it that, holding them to 27 points.
Better than the Cowboys did.
Yeah, so, no, I just think that they said that, Casey Dunn said that because the NFL is a lot about matchups, as he was talking about, and it's a lot about schemes, and that's going to be something that is going to be a big focus today.
I agree with you. Again, my question is it going to be a moral victory and then they just like let off the gas, or are they going to continue to put their foot on the gas for that game?
I think this Baylor team is getting better every single week. I think COVID, much to their own fault, has really hurt their season. But I think these guys are believing in Dave Aranda. We saw when you implement a new defensive style and a new defensive scheme, we saw this with Jim Knowles here at OSU. It takes a while to acclimate. We see now in year 3, Jim Knowles' defense, the best that it's been. Well, I mean, Dave Aranda's had like 7 games to implement this new scheme, and these guys are believing. These guys are understanding the concepts a lot more. And this defense was designed to stop teams like Alabama, designed to stop teams like Florida in the SEC. So, I mean, to be able to get it to where it needs to be is a little bit further off once Dave Aranda recruits the guys that he wants for his system. But right now, it's going to be fun to see if Casey Dunn, who has been much maligned over this season, over these past few weeks, can draw up a game plan that can exploit this Baylor defense.
Real fast before we go to commercial, I know, Ian, we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, bowl game predictions, and you keep saying, please don't send us to the Cheez-It Bowl. Right now, we're predicted to go to the Cheez-It Bowl. You know, how are you feeling? We're predicted to play NC State.
So this is what I will say. The Cheez-It Bowl goes to the third place team in the Big 12, and that's Texas right now because
of
of the
Camping
head-to-head.
World, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Camping World. Yeah.
So all those out there, it used to be the Camping World Bowl.
But now it's been upgraded to the Cheez-It Bowl.
But questionable honestly, upgrade, if we will.
Questionable no, it is an upgrade. What are you talking about? No, but I would like to see this team go to the Liberty Bowl because Memphis is a great city, and I feel like
also questionable. As a Tennessean, I can say Memphis is not the best city in Tennessee, but that's besides the point.
We've played there before.
They got good ribs.
We played in Tennessee before in Memphis in the Liberty Bowl and had success there. I believe that was Corn Dog when we beat Drew Lock in Missouri.
Yeah.
Right now, that's predicted to be West Virginia, Kentucky.
That would make sense because that's the closest game to them.
But no, I hope that, as you said, if we're going to salvage the season, I hope that it is in a better bowl than the Cheez-It Bowl. Or, I mean, we're not getting into the top 2 ranked. That's going to be Iowa State and OU. So hopefully we can slide into that third spot that is now held by Texas. We'll see. But a win today would surely help.
Exactly. So when we come back, we will analyze more on the Cowboys' defense today. Stay with us.
And welcome back to the pregame report. Let's talk about the defenses for both of these teams. Dave Arnott for Baylor, big defensive guy, was a defensive coordinator for that fantastic LSU team.
Has been the coordinator there for a while.
Yeah.
Always had pretty consistent defense, and as I said, he was building defenses to stop those high-powered SEC offenses. So he's brought that scheme now to the Big 12. He's brought that scheme to Baylor, a team that has been pretty defensively sound under Matt Rule in the couple of years leading up to this year. But no, that's going to be a big-time battle today, I think, between Casey Dunn and, in effect, Mike Gundy. Right. Against the Dave Aranda defense.
Looking at those Cowboys defense, key members, Trace Ford, Amon, and Trace Sterling. We could talk about Amon and Trace in a minute, but Ian, I know you're really passionate about Trace Sterling. How are you feeling this week? I know he had a pretty good game against TCU and kind of got gypped again. Just talk about Trace Sterling.
Look, I'm going to go to this camera real quick. I'm declaring myself now the president of the Trace Sterling fan club. And the fact that the Paycom Thorpe Award didn't put Trace Sterling in their semifinalist list is criminal. They know better than this. Trace Sterling has been one of the best, I think, safeties in the country. We've seen it time and time again, and they didn't put him on this list. And it's shameful by the Thorpe Award to not have him on this list, because he deserves to be on this list. He's an NFL talent, and he needs his respect. And he tweeted out that he
did. I thought that was kind of funny.
He said, I'm used to it. It's like, you should not be used to it because
you deserve more. Right.
Award.
Yes. Just some stats on him. He had
another year.
Right. That's true. He's a junior.
Maybe 2 more years because
of the COVID year. So. He had 61 tackles on the season, 2 interceptions, 4 total tackles against TCU. He's a constant player for the defense, which I think is something that the Cowboys really need. There have not been many constants. There haven't been many players that we can count on just because of injuries and, will they play up to what we expect them to do? But Trace Sterling is definitely one of those players.
Mm-hmm. I didn't look at the nominees, but I do agree that if you're trying to tell me that he's not one of the best 11 safeties in the country, I have to disagree.
Then
with
you're
you.
Wrong.
I think that he won us that game against Texas Tech with that pick 6. So
right,
it's not like Kansas State.
Yeah, so it's not like he's not making winning plays for our team. Talking about, though, OSU's defense, this is one of the last games that we're going to see guys like Amen Agban-Bamiga possibly,
right.
Malcolm Rodriguez. Sadly, Rodarius Williams is not going to play today, so I assume his time at OSU is done. He'll probably go to the NFL as well. He might play in the bowl game. We'll see, but
these guys have something to prove today. They've been talking the last 2 weeks. The defense knows that they haven't been playing as well as they did. I know I said that earlier on the show. So they want something to prove. They have something to prove. And they were talking earlier in the season, no one talks about Big 12 defenses. No one was giving OSU the credit of the solid defense that they have. And now they've kind of fallen off. And so I'm really expecting that defense to go out, put that exclamation point at the end of their season, like, hey, we had a good defense from start to finish.
I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer when it comes to this OSU defense. But yes, they played great early in the season. I even did, a special package about how dominant their defense has been. I broke down their defense in terms of their stats and their rankings across the country. At one time, I believe they were first in third down defense,
right.
With teams that had been ranked that had played 6 games. So, but they hadn't played the best teams. I'm going to be the first one to say I don't think that Texas Tech and TCU are one of the better teams, but I know that Tech and OU have 2 of the better offenses in the league, and they just didn't play well against those 2 teams, against 2 schemes that are built to go against this OSU defense. So I just think that it was a little bit of a mirage early in the year. Yes, they were playing great, and they beat some good teams, Tulsa, West Virginia, etc., Iowa State. But when they played against these teams that are rolling and hitting on all cylinders, they haven't played as well. So
we'll have to
that
see.
Could be due to injuries.
Right.
I know Rodarius Williams going down might be the most impactful injury on this entire Oklahoma State team, not just on the defense, because he's an island corner. We rely on him to go against the team's best receiver on the other side, and when you take him out, you're having to deal with backup guys, and Jarek Bernard-Converse has not proved that he is a number one corner, not so far this year. So
Gundy said about 2 weeks ago that Rodarius was not just the hottest player on the defense, but he was the hottest player on the team. So it is really unfortunate that he won't be playing today. But some other players that we picked to watch in today's game against Baylor are Trey Sterling, obviously, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Tanner McAllister. Last year against Baylor, Malcolm had 6 tackles and 1 forced fumble. He's a senior leader who we may not always talk about a lot. And then we have Tanner McAllister, a junior who I didn't really hear much about him until this season. He had 3 games with 6 tackles. That was K-State, Texas, and Tulsa. Ian, what do you think we can expect to see from those 3 players today? I know you said Trey Sterling, obviously, but focusing more on Malcolm and Tanner.
I really like Malcolm Rodriguez, pride of Wagner, who's played in the 4A state championship right now against Clinton at UCO. Malcolm Rodriguez is a really solid linebacker. He's kind of that anchor of the defense in that linebacker core, and I expect him to do a lot today. I want to see him get some pressure on the quarterback as well. One guy I want to see more Tyler Irby. We hadn't seen him a whole lot. He had that fumble against West Virginia.
Right, yeah.
That's been about it. I'd like to see more of him.
I'd like to see more Trace Ford. He's another guy that we've mentioned.
He's had 18 total tackles,
in the
1
key
forced
members.
fumble.
We haven't really seen him show up since the OU game, where he was our best player, period.
And he had a pretty good season last year, right? Wasn't he?
Trace
Big
Ford is
12s?
a true freshman. Played great last year. But I think Trace Ford can play on Sundays. I think that he's our most talented.
Yes.
I'll say this. I think Trace Ford is our most NFL-ready player on our entire team, him and Rodarius.
I'll agree with that.
So for him to kind of go dormant against Texas Tech, a team with a very poor offensive line, and for him to go dormant against TCU, who is dealing with offensive line issues of their own, replacing 2 starters in that game alone, I would like to see him play well today against a Baylor team that also has a mediocre to average offensive line. So I want to see that same fire that he had against OU in this game today.
A lot of things to analyze on the defensive side of the ball, but now we're going to switch to Adam to see who has the edge.
All right, I'm back. Another Who Has the Edge segment, of course. Right now, it's Who Has the Edge on defense. So, really, who has the edge? Well, I'll tell you in a minute. Now, Baylor's defense, guys, they've been without their leading tackler, Terrell Brown, since early November when he suffered a season-ending shoulder injury. Now, however, safety and linebacker, get that, safety and linebacker, it's not, too common. You see player play both positions. Jalen Petrie, guys, he's put together a solid season, really, that includes 52 tackles and 2 interceptions. Now, Baylor's pass defense, believe it or not, is actually among the Big 12's best. Second best, to be exact. This is a defense that has recorded 10 interceptions on the season, contrary to Oklahoma State's 6. But hey, take that with a grain of salt, because keep in mind that Baylor has indeed played the fewest games in the league with just 8 games, due to so many COVID interruptions that they've had down in Waco. Now, Dylan Doyle, right? Dylan Doyle is another difference maker for the Bears at linebacker. He's a transfer from Iowa. He's recovered a fumble this season while also tallying 47 tackles. He's a guy that's really kind of broken through in his new squad. Now, Baylor has some really solid guys in the secondary. Let me explain. Junior safety JT Woods, who is also a member of Baylor's track team. So yeah, shout out to him, a hashtag dual sport athlete. He has intercepted the football 3 times this season, so keep an eye out for him on the Bears defense. Also, keep an eye out for outside linebacker William Bradley Kane. He's a Arkansas State transfer, all Sun Belt selection last year, and he's made an immediate impact in a Power 5 conference like the Big 12. 3.5 sacks and 4 pass breakups. He's a huge guy on that defensive line, outside linebacker. Huge guy there, so keep an eye out for him. Now, for Oklahoma State, guys, we've talked about it all season long. We all know how good this defense is. I mean, the Cowboy secondary is elite. In fact, Pro Football Focus named OSU the third best secondary in college football. Now, Amen has been incredible. Guys like Devin Harper, Jason Taylor, who's really broken through. He had that coming out party in Manhattan. That was a fantastic game. Malcolm Rodriguez, Brock Martin, he had a really, really incredible game last week against TCU. Unfortunately, the Pokes couldn't win, even though the defense forced 5 turnovers. Now, the whole defense as a whole, as a collective, has just been, it's been great, because normally Big 12, you hear that argument, Big 12 doesn't have great defense. Well, example, 2020 Oklahoma State Cowboys defense. So many guys have made a huge impact for the Pokes this season, and that is why, defensively, Oklahoma State has the edge this afternoon against Baylor.
Thank you, Adam. Again, he gave the edge to Oklahoma State on defense, which is not really a surprise to any of us, I don't think.
I think Baylor's strength of their team is their defense.
Yeah.
But
They're
in
pretty
terms of talent, yes, OSU definitely has more talent.
They're pretty close statistically. Baylor allows 27 points per game, where OSU allows 24.5. So pretty close margin there.
You have to remember, Baylor's trajectory right now is going like this, and OSU's is going like this on defense.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about that with TCU, where like TCU, their strength is their defense, but we still gave the edge to Oklahoma State because they had more playmakers.
Hopefully, we'll be more right about this game today,
about
though.
Baylor's defense.
Okay.
They haven't allowed more than 33 points on the year, so that's pretty solid in the Big 12. Considering that they only played a Big 12 schedule.
Right.
And, I mean, they've lost so many close games this season. And remember, it's a first-year head coach in Dave Aranda. So this Baylor team, yeah, they might be 2-6, but that does not mean they aren't dangerous, and that definitely doesn't discount the fact that they're playing at a high level right now. Barely, again, holding OU to only 27 points.
It's impressive. They've had a, Their record doesn't show, I think, the skill that Baylor has. And I don't think that we should count them out. But I do agree that OSU has edge on defense.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the offense in the next segment. This is the pregame report. Let's go to commercial break right now.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our, intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say Monday the 15th. Time's right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're going to make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs.
I know.
Welcome back to the pregame report. Ian Nickel, Alex Dusky, and Parker Terrell. Terrell
works.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Terrell.
it's okay. It's
Terrell
okay.
works.
We're taking a look at this highlight. Desmond Jackson running across midfield, having a whole bunch of Horned Frogs, taking him down, or as he's running out of bounds. Some good offensive highlights there. And
One thing with Laney all season, I've been excited to talk about the offense every week. I've been excited to see what they can do. Gundy's an offensive guy. I'm not excited to talk about them today, honestly, guys.
I'm not either. I agree.
I'm sick and tired of seeing just the same old every single week. No ingenuity, no, not a lot of just spark from the offense that I've seen from an OSU team. I've seen it before.
I would disagree. I think that the Desmond Jackson spark, both last week and 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
I think that was something
he
that
played
really
great
jumped.
against Texas Tech,
Right.
average against TCU, average run defense team.
And it is hard when you have Tylan Wallace go out. He obviously is the best offensive player. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. And the thing is, it's not that when he goes out, the offense is like, well, shoot, he's gone. It's that the defense doesn't have to cover him so that they can cover everyone else more easily. And that's something that all the coaches said this week in the media availabilities is that, yes, Tylan's a great leader. He's a great player, and we love him, and we love seeing him on the field. But when he goes out, it's not just that the offense is bummed. It's that the defense now can more easily cover everyone else.
I don't know if coaches, we know this as well as anyone, they're going to say whatever, sounds the best. I definitely think
do you really
Spencer
think that's not
Sanders-
right, though? I mean, just
I think
look at the
Spencer
game.
Sanders gets bummed when he doesn't have
Right,
Tylan Wallace.
right. And so then
Is he not the main focal point
He
of our
is.
offense? So that combined with no Chuba Hubbard, combined with no LD Brown, combined with an offensive line that's playing multiple freshmen, multiple guys out of position, that has just led to a perfect storm of, I'm not going to say incompetence, but just disappointment on the offensive side of the ball.
and it's not just one thing, though. And I'll agree
No,
with
it's not
that.
just one.
Right.
But is that not a testament to your offensive depth / scheme when one guy goes out and everything just grinds to a halt?
But it isn't, well, also on the offensive line, it's not just one player. Ian and I were talking about it the last 2 weeks, is that the offensive line has been playing musical chairs since day one. And I think Gundy kind of defended Casey Dunn because Casey Dunn's been getting attacked a lot about his offensive players and the offensive line specifically. And Gundy said, we've never experienced this. We've never had 6 players out on offense before. And so he stood by Casey Dunn and the players and the schemes, which I think you would disagree with about the schemes, but the players just need experience. And the freshmen, it's hard to play D1 ball when you're expected, a third or fourth string, and now you're suddenly the first player.
That's great to get experience, Ian. Sorry to cut you off, but ultimately, is it not time to play to win the game? Like, I get that you want these guys out here, and Gundy can talk all he wants about how I'm so excited for spring ball when we've got, 6 guys on the offensive line that have a lot of experience. Well, you've had multiple guys that had experience coming into this season that had experience off the offensive line, and even when they were healthy, they were nothing special. So, I mean, they can talk about Pro Football Focus ranks all they want. I just think that the offense has been the biggest disappointment of this OSU season, and that goes all the way to the top with Gundy for me. It speaks to the lack of depth, it speaks to the lack of scheme, and it speaks to the fact that last week against TCU, we got out-coached against a team that, was dealing with injuries themselves, just as we have all season. Every team's been hit hard by COVID and injuries this year, and yet Mike Gundy has played against Gary Patterson. He knows that defensive scheme that they play and how aggressive they are, and they still got out-coached in the second half.
I'd actually kind of like to present a different argument. I would kind of like to blame, why, like Tylan Wallace, number one receiver all the time, right? But how come we haven't utilized, I think we mentioned this earlier, Tay Martin. We haven't utilized D. Anderson. D. Anderson has 1 catch in 14 yards.
Jelani Woods, Brandon Johnson,
there's so many
Landon
players
Wall,
on the
Stoner.
offense
Yes.
that aren't being played. And
that speaks to Casey Dunn's scheme.
Right. And there is saying, like, obviously Tylan's a star. And so if he's consistent, that's fine. He catches, double, triple coverage, but he's going to be gone next year. And he's gone today. He's injured. What do we do?
I love Tylan Wallace. I think he's one of the best receivers Oklahoma State has ever had in their long history of great receivers. But he's not Calvin Johnson out there. I mean, I refuse to believe that one player, especially a receiver, can cause an offense like OSU's that was supposed to have so much potential going into the year to turn into statistically barely better than Kansas without Tylan Wallace. So that speaks to scheme and coaching. And that's something that Mike Gundy has prided himself on here at OSU, is offensively being able to win with no matter what players are on the field. And that has totally gone against what's happened this season.
No, I
and
agree.
we can blame it on the offensive line. We can blame it on Spencer Sanders. We can blame it on Chuba Hubbard, Talon Wallace, LD Brown being out. But ultimately, does it not fall on the coaches to get the guys ready in practice every week? You've been dealing with the same players on the offensive line all season. And yet Charlie Dickey and those guys seem lost every week against mediocre at best defensive lines. So I refuse to put the blame only on Talon Wallace being out. I get that he's a great player and he's a great leader, but ultimately the disappointment on the offensive side of the ball falls on the eyes of the coaches, and it falls on everything as a team.
Ian, you mentioned another player that we haven't really seen much from, and that's Jelani Woods. We did pick him as one of our players to watch. Before we switch to Adams with Crowd at the Edge, what have you seen from Jelani, and what do you hope to see? He's a junior, I think, right? So he still has one more year, potentially two.
I think he's a redshirt junior because he did graduate today as well.
Oh, okay.
So, but that doesn't mean that he can't come
Come
back
back next year, right?
But yeah, he is now graduating.
What have you seen from him? Obviously, that was a good clip from him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect?
I haven't seen, I want to see more of him. I want to see him be utilized in the offense the same way with, Tay Anderson or D. Anderson and Tay Martin. He's like a tight end. We need to use that tight end more often as he can, push guys out of the way. If we could use him as a blocker, that would work too. I think we have been, but I want to see him catch the ball more, and I also want to see him block more as well.
We tried to use him as a red zone target. Backfired in that TCU game. So, I agree with you. I've been screaming all season that I wish that we could see more of Jelani Woods. Maybe they don't trust him. Maybe he doesn't have as good of hands as we thought he did. But that clip showed you right there that he's got some athleticism, a good amount. Being a former quarterback, switched to Cowboy back. So, I agree with you. I think that we should see more of him today.
Well, we've for sure talked enough about offense. Let's switch it over to Adam Engel with Who Has the Edge for offense.
All right, guys, I'm back for our final Who Has the Edge segment, of course. Ending things off with the offense. So here's the deal. Baylor's offense, guys, I'm going to put it out there. It's really frank, to be quite frank. They've struggled this season. They really have. The second worst offense in the Big 12. Now, their outstanding weakness is their run game, all right? Statistically, the worst in the Big 12 and seventh worst in Division I FBS, right? 121st worst rushing, statistically ranked 121st out of 128 in rushing. Now, Baylor averages just around 93 yards a game, and, the cause certainly was not helped when Chris Squirrel Williams, yes, his nickname is Squirrel, that's really, really cool, by the way, their leading rusher, guys, he tore his ACL and MCL in early November against Iowa State, so that did not help things at all. He's been lost for the season. Now, their active leading rusher, if you could call it that, is quarterback Charlie Brewer III. Now, he averages around 21 rushing yards per game. So, now, the passing offense for Baylor is just a completely different story. Senior quarterback Charlie Brewer, who's had a really solid career, by the way, in Waco. Guys, he always racks up stats. It is what it is. The Austin, Texas native threw for 256 yards last week against OU, but when you look at how many times he attempted to throw the ball, it makes sense. The dude chucked the ball 56 times. 56 times last week in Norman, completing just 30 of those attempts, and he's been a little inaccurate this season, but hey, take it as you will, because like I said, he chucks the ball a lot. He throws the ball a lot. So you're gonna make and you're gonna miss some. So 14 passing touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Those are his stats so far this season. Now, turning gears over to Oklahoma State. Well, Oklahoma State's offense has certainly been an interesting situation this year, right? Due to many injuries, it's a depleted offensive line, lots of youth, plenty of inexperience, plenty of youth. Now, LD Brown and Chuba Hubbard, those running backs, guys, they've had their injury problems this season. But I'll tell you what, a recent bright spot is JUCO transfer Desmond Jackson. Welcome to Stillwater, man. He had himself a day against Texas Tech on Saturday, I guess Black Saturday, the day after Black Friday. 3 touchdowns for 235 yards last week. And last week, the former Hutchinson Blue Dragon, shout out, hashtag JUCO product, baby, he found the end zone once and recorded 110 plus rushing yards. So as much as it pains me to say, also today will be, unfortunately, the final regular season game in the OSU uniform for Biletnikoff Award finalist Tylan Wallace. Man, what a Cowboy career that man has had. And folks, that is why, once again, I am sticking with OSU to have the edge offensively.
Thank you, Adam. Once again, we'll get back to you in a second. I actually kind of disagree with him. I think Baylor has the edge just because of Charlie Brewer and the way that Oklahoma State has struggled with those kind of semi-mobile quarterbacks. We saw it with Dugan, we saw it with Ellinger, and we saw it a little bit with Rattler.
And Purdy, he was able to score a touchdown against OSU. But no, I like that take. I think Brewer just last year was playing in the Big 12 title game against OU. Of course, he got injured in that game, but he's got a lot of experience, and he's just getting better and better as the year has gone on. And as you said, I think OSU has struggled with really experienced guys all year.
For sure, I think it'll be an interesting game to see how both of these offenses play together, combined with the defenses. I think it has the potential to be a really good game. Before we go to our predictions, we have to do our buy or sell first. So going back to Adam with the first buy or sell.
All right, guys, it's time for our favorite segment, buy or sell. So Parker, Alex, and Ian. I'm sorry, I'm still trying not to say Laney because unfortunately that's ingrained in my mind. But congratulations to Laney. She graduated and she's going off to chase her dreams. But yes, Ian, Parker, and Alex, we will start. So buy or sell, OSU defense forces 2+ turnovers.
Okay. I've never been on this side of the buy or
I know,
sell
right?
before,
Having to...
so 2 or more turnovers. I don't think that Charlie Brewer is going to make that many mistakes. If we see one, it's probably going to be maybe just 1 interception. I don't see this team fumbling a lot. I'm going to sell it.
Whew. I'm going to sell it as well, just strictly based on I think Baylor watched the film from last week, and they know that OSU is going to try to strip the ball, and they're going to try to stop that from happening. Brewer hasn't been the most efficient on the year with 8 interceptions, so I do think that they can probably get one of those. But having 2 or more, I just don't see it happening this week. I'm going to sell.
I'm going to buy it. I have faith in our defense. I don't know if you saw that earlier in the show, but I believe us. Last year against Baylor, obviously 2 different teams, but we had 3 turnovers against them last year, so I think the Cowboys can do it.
All right. Adam, round 2.
All right, guys, buy or sell. No missed OSU kicks. OSU does not miss a kick today. Buy or sell.
Man, I don't know about that one. I'd honestly, personally, I like to see us go for 2 every single time.
Right, yeah.
Every single time.
What do we have to lose?
Yeah. I'm gonna sell. I don't feel great about that.
Again, go ahead.
I feel like they'll miss 1, or it could get blocked. I don't know. I just see them missing at least 1.
I am easily selling this. I think that this game could come down to field goals. A battle of 2 pretty solid defenses and 2 offenses that have struggled this year. It's going to come down to field goals, and the kicker poll did not give me any confidence after last week's performance. Maybe he's improved. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I'm going to sell it.
I'm also going to sell. Even if Alex Hale was still here, I'd be leery to say, a perfect game, although he did have pretty perfect games early in the season. That's just pretty tough. But, what if we never kick? What if we just do 2 points every time? So, Ian, you could be onto something, but I'm going to sell it as well.
I will say I don't think Gundy will be that risky with
Right,
it.
You don't
yeah.
need to be like the Eagles and just go for 2 every time. Please don't.
All right. Adam again, round 3. Let's go.
All right, our third buy or sell this afternoon is Baylor outpassing OSU. Does Baylor record more passing yards than OSU? Buy or sell?
I'm buying that easily. I think Charlie Brewer will, have around 250, and Sanders has 225.
I'm going to buy it as well. The loss of Rodarius definitely has, I mean, that can only help Baylor's passing game. I haven't seen a lot out of Bernard Converse or Holmes in the secondary, and I'm going to buy that. I think Charlie Brewer could have a pretty big day, getting close to 300 yards.
I'm also going to buy, with Tylen out, I just don't think that our offense will throw the ball that much today.
All right, Adam, one more time, buy or sell.
All right, guys, our fourth and final buy or sell of the season, regular season. Desmond Jackson rushes or records 100-plus rushing yards. Buy or sell?
Okay.
We said last week, would he have 150 yards? And if they're going to give him 30-plus carries like they did,
These
they
last
gave him
2 weeks.
29
Right.
in CCU, that's an easy buy for me. It seems like he'll get around that 118 mark like he did last week. That seems about right to me. I'll go ahead and buy it.
I'm going to sell it. I think that OSU's offensive line struggles combined with Baylor only allows 92.9 rushing yards per game. That's the strength of their defense is rushing defense. I think that they're going to be forced to try to throw the ball today. Against a Baylor secondary that's not as talented as their front seven. So I'm gonna sell it. Hopefully they do get some touchdowns in the red zone with Desmond Jackson in the run game. But I mean that's a low number to sell, but I'm gonna take it.
I'm gonna buy it. I think that like Ian said, we are going to run the ball a lot, and I think 100 yards is pretty easily attainable. Chuba was getting 100 yards every single game last season, pretty much. So I think, obviously Desmond is no Chuba Hubbard 2019 player, but I think he can do it, especially, like we said, with the injuries on offense. He's about all we have right now.
Yeah. Also, we might see Spencer Sanders run the ball more today.
That is true. That's a possibility.
Take the load off of Desmond Jackson some, and you have to remember there's 2 games of film on Desmond Jackson now. So he's
not an unknown anymore.
So I think that they're going to know some of his tendencies and be able to key on him a lot more. And again, he was a third stringer for a reason. So we'll see if he can, surpass that. But Baylor's defense definitely is really solid against the run.
Interesting thing to note, saw a tweet, Baylor is out, 47 players, coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. How much of an impact do you think that will have on the game?
It's going to be interesting to see because I remember, back in October when we first canceled, I believe it was like at least 30 players had COVID. Mm-hmm. And so, they should be, immune for 3 months. So are these still the players, or do you think the majority of it's going to be coaching, which obviously would still impact it, but I don't think it would be as detrimental as it was in October?
This goes right into my prediction. I picked OSU to win 21-17, despite, me talking all show about the discrepancies I see on this OSU team, because I know Baylor has been dealing with a lot of issues on the COVID side and when dealing with coaches being out. I just think that maybe that can factor into a depth issue, and therefore OSU can come out of Waco with a win. But I am not confident in that prediction.
And we made these earlier in the week before we knew about the injuries.
Yeah. We made these before we even knew there would be a game.
That is true.
So, I can easily see Oklahoma State losing this game with 24. I would even say 24-10, 24-13. Remember last week, OSU only scores 15 points if we don't have that crazy defensive touchdown by Brock Martin. Right. So this OSU offense without Tylan Wallace is sputtering, to say the least, against a Baylor defense that is as hot as any defense in the country. I picked OSU to win 21-17, but I am not confident in that.
I picked OSU to win as well. Bigger spread, 28-17. Like I said, I did make that prediction before we knew about Tylen and Chuba being out. And with Rodarius Williams being out on defense as well, I think there's a lot of factors that figure into that. I still do believe that OSU will win today. I have faith in the Cowboys, Last game of the season, you kind of got to win today. But I'll stick with my prediction, 28-17.
I will say, games like this, close games, come down to special teams. We saw it last week, 7 points left on the board, lose by 7. Could that be a big factor today? Especially with our kicker having little to no confidence right now. Could a missed field goal, a missed extra point kill us in this game? I definitely think that they could.
Ian, what's your prediction?
Well, with everything that I said, right, you would think I have it being a close game. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care. I think that Oklahoma State will somehow get it done. I have them winning big, 42-14. I'm going all in with this.
You really are. You really are.
Sorry, I
I'm
said
taking a
24 to
massive
17.
risk.
That's correct.
I'm taking a massive risk with this pick. Something is going to click today, and I'm banking on that. I think just because, we're going to be frustrated.
That's
I think
true.
we'll see a lot of penalties because of the frustration, but because of how disappointing the season has been with the expectation of a Big 12 championship, I want them to play with their heads on fire, and I think that'll happen today.
Sorry, I said 24 to 17. So OSU winning by a touchdown and actually covering the
Yes.
spread of 5.5. But no, I don't think this Gundy team hasn't had their hair on fire since they played Iowa State. I don't think that's going to happen today. And I think that Baylor is actually the more motivated team. The hungry dog runs faster. I think Baylor will get the win today, despite my prediction. That being said, if I get it exactly right, I will totally claim it.
Well, I think there's a lot to say about the Cowboys game today. I'm sticking with them. I think we can do it. Go Pokes. Last game of the season. I have faith in the Cowboys.
Well, last regular season game.
That's true.
Don't forget the Cheez-It Bowl.
Cheez-It Bowl.
Cheez-It Bowl.
Yes.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in all season long on the Poke Report. Thank you to Alex Dusky, Parker Terrell, Laney Gerber, who graduated, Adam Engel from Wyoming. Thank you guys for watching us this entire season. Go ahead and turn on ESPN, not ESPNU.
Right, we switched channels.
At 2:30 now, so in a couple of minutes for the final regular season game against Baylor. As always, go Pokes.